Now, the 5 co-accused charged with helping Thabo Bester break out of prison are back in court today. They are continuing with their bail application in Bloemfontein. Former G4S warders and a CCTV technician allegedly helped the convicted murderer and rapist escape prison in May of last year. eNCA senior reporter Silindelo Masikane is following that story for us and joins us live now to give us an update on what to expect in court this morning. And Slee, a very warm good morning to you. A colleague, I see you bright and early this morning for us to give us, of course, details on what to expect in a court. That's precisely the question. What's the day looking like with those court proceedings?
Certainly so. We are expecting a start just after 9 a.m. this morning, and of course we are seeing the continuation of the bail applications by the 5 co-accused, mainly those who were working at the Mangaung Correctional Centre at the time of Thabo Bester's escape from the prison on the 3rd of May 2022. We have accused number 1, that is Sinohe Matswara. We understand he's the supervisor who was on duty on the day and allegedly was the one who also brought in Katlego Bereng's body that was going to be planted in Bester's cell. We also have a security guard, Buti Masukela, and we have a CCTV technician, that is Debokodri Polo, and we have those who are also working in the control room, that is Anastasia Janssen, as well as Mr. Makotso, who we understand was also paid. Others who have been implicated were not paid, but we understand that accused number 1, according to the state, was the one who was responsible for facilitating the payments and, of course, recruiting those who were going to assist Bester in his escape from prison. During the evidence in chief by the state in the opposition of bail, we saw evidence being led from the investigating officer who outlined each of the roles of the accused in this particular escape. Now, we are inside the courtroom, and to my right, Joko Mane will show you that we do have, as usual, very tight security in terms of the courtroom in which these proceedings are taking place. We, as the media and all of those who are attending, need to actually be vetted, in essence. So before the security officials will let me in, I'm going to have to show them a wristband that we've all been assigned, and you can see in front of you that we do have the state prosecutor who's seated outside, so it doesn't seem like we're going to start anytime soon, are we, advocate? He's not going to engage him at the moment. But also to my left, I do want to show you that we do have some of the defense attorneys who have arrived. We've got at least 4 lawyers at this point who are representing the accused in this matter, and we have actually concluded. I'm going to ask JK to walk with me just to the other side of the security officials. We had the lawyer for accused number 1 actually concluding his cross-examination of the investigating officer, who, in fact, during that cross-examination was telling the court that the accused had possible links to gangs, and at that point the lawyer was just really trying to ascertain that his client would be able to get bail, and saying that at this point it's not about the merits of the case, but whether his client actually does meet the standards that are required for his release on bail. But we had an opportunity to speak to a legal expert with regards to what the defense attorneys are going to have to show the court for their clients to be admitted to bail. Let's just take a listen to what Mr. Marius Dutoy had to say.
I think when any person deals with bail, Slee, you have to try and prove, number 1, that your client's not a flight risk. Number 2, that he won't intimidate witnesses, that the evidence against him might not be as strong as the state would like the court to believe. And there could be a number of factors linked with that sort of cross-examination. You might deal with passports, you might deal with my fixed abode, you might want to show that I have a number of properties or I have a business. So the defense, in cross-examining the state, because remember, this is a bail hearing, so hearsay evidence is admitted. In other words, the investigating officer can tell the court what he heard another person explain to him or what he heard somebody said. So the evidence that is tendered by in the court is generally speaking quite wide. And you as the attorney has to make sure that the grounds upon which the state is opposing bail, that those grounds specifically are attacked, so that you can show at the end of the day that the grounds upon which they rely are perhaps frivolous, it doesn't carry much weight, and the court should permit my client to bail in the interest of justice. So as an attorney, you are always gauged by the nature of the evidence adduced by the state, because you expect the state to only adduce that evidence which they believe will be sufficient for the court to deny your client bail.
So definitely hearing there, of course, Slee from our legal experts saying there's a lot of work that has to be done by the defense to prove, beyond reasonable doubt that, their clients are not flight risk, that they will, of course, abide by any, of course, rules and conditions provided to them if granted bail, but they have to first convince why they should be granted that bail. But I can see where you are right now, colleague, inside the court, and our media colleagues, at least some of them, also preparing for those proceedings.
Certainly so. We are inside and expecting, of course, the arrival of the accused any moment now from the holding cells. You can see in front of you that we have the lawyers for the accused also inside court, and we also know, of course, that at this point Dr. Nandipha Makudumana herself has reserved her right to apply for bail. That is why you're not going to see her today inside the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court, because she herself at this point, according to her lawyers, there's some new information that her lawyers have received that they're looking over in terms of the aspect of her applying for bail at a later stage. Her father, you would remember as well, was actually in court as well earlier this week when the main matter was postponed. He was in the dock with the other 5 accused, and in terms of his bail conditions, he was released on bail last month. And of course, we were told that he will not be allowed to leave the area of Port Edward without, informing the investigating officer. At that point, the murder charge against him was also dropped, and of course, he has to report to a police station as well in terms of his bail conditions. So it's going to be quite interesting to see whether or not the other accused in this matter who applied for bail will also be granted. We know that in terms of Mr. Zolile Sekeleni, Dr. Nandipha's father, at that point the state didn't oppose his bail, but with these former G4S employees as well as the CCTV technician, they are opposing bail, bringing forth issues around the fact that they may interfere with investigations, that they may intimidate witnesses. And of course, they believe, the state rather believes, that they should remain behind bars. So at this point, without the murder charge, they are facing Schedule 1 offences, meaning that the onus is on the state to show why they should remain behind bars. And of course, with Thabo Bester, he's already a convict being housed at the Hosimampuru prison. His lawyers do want him to be present for court appearances. In the last appearance, we know, of course, that DC had made an application for him to appear virtually due to the fact that we were going to see short proceedings and a postponement that proceeded. So all 8 accused once more will be back in court on the 20th of June. It will be also interesting to see, Dumelo, whether any more arrests between now and then will be made in terms of this matter. The IO had alluded to the fact that investigations are still ongoing. They're going to take about a month or 2 to wrap up, saying that more arrests are still imminent. But at this stage, only 8 people arrested, including Thabo Bester, and of course we're expecting all 8 of them to be back in court on the 20th of June. And right now what we're doing is monitoring those bail proceedings to see whether any of the co-accused will also receive bail.
That's right. Well, Silindelo Masikane, that's what makes the story so captivating, right? So much is happening, not only inside court, but those investigations outside court as well. At the heart of it is justice. You know, when we think about Thabo Bester, for example, that's at least part of, the story where a family want justice for their loved ones. And we'll have to see what happens. But with you, colleague, tracking those developments for us, we'll be sure to be updated. And thank you so much. Silindelo Masikane out in the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court for us. Well, we'll be sure heading back to Slee as soon as those bail proceedings do commence, where we understand both the state and the defence having to argue their points. On one end, we have the defence have to argue why their clients, the suspects in this regard, deserve to be granted bail, but the state having to also prove why they should be remanded in custody and should remain behind bars as those ongoing investigations around Thabo Bester's brazen escape continue to take place.